Is how old is he?
He is 2 years old. He's gonna be 3 in December. Okay, so understanding fractions. We want to do the basics of fraction, and I want to have you guys understand everything that has to deal with fractions because after this week, so when Friday comes, we are moving on to something else next week. While you guys are doing another topic. So you want to be able to understand all of these things that are important when it comes to solving fractions, right? Now, in the package, I'm not sure if you guys read the content that I have that I prepared and then that Miss Katsim posted, but in the idea of fractions, their fractions were existed a long time ago, and people didn't even know that they were using fractions. And then I have an example from where in the Bible it says that for the Last Supper that Jesus broke the bread, and if he had to break the bread and he had to give a piece of bread for all of his disciples and even one for himself, and he had so many breads, was he using fractions? And those are things that just make us think. People were using fractions so many years ago and they didn't even know about it. Now, the basics of fraction. Now, what we want to learn about fraction, first of all, you need to make sure that you have to know what we call the parts of the fraction. What is the numerator? What is the denominator? What does the line that divides these two numbers, what does that represent? And what do you call the whole thing? Well, the whole thing is called a fraction, of course. When you guys see something like that I have in the red circle, okay, that's a fraction. I know it's a fraction. I can see that it's a fraction. The numerator at the top tells you how many pieces I am talking about and how many pieces are important to me. And then the number at the bottom tells me the whole thing. How many pieces do I have in all? And then the line that divides the two of them doesn't have a name. Nobody has ever put a name to that line, but we just know that it is a line that is very important that divides the numerator and the denominator, represents the fraction and makes the fraction what it is. How can we represent fractions? How can we, if I tell you guys, okay, half, show me half. I don't want you to write 1/2. Show me another way to show me half. There are four different ways how a fraction can be represented. And we don't really have time to do these and for you guys to practice and show me these things. So you can represent a fraction as part of a whole. I can draw a picture, I can draw a rectangle, I can draw a circle, and I can shade half. And I can show you, okay, this is half. I can draw eight little triangles and then I'm gonna color four, and that is showing me half of that set. I can draw a number line, and on this number line, I'm going to mark a point that represents half. And then we have fraction bars. Fraction bars are these line strips that if I have two of them and I shade one, that is going to represent half. And these are four ways that how we can represent a fraction. Types of fractions. Now, this is what you guys already should have known, but it's very always good to refresh your memory. When we talk about types of fractions, there are so many types of fractions. When we look at these three, these are the basic ones. This is the ones that you guys in primary school you start learning about. Proper fractions, improper fractions, and mixed fractions. And we have to know the difference between these three. So, looking at a proper fraction now. A proper fraction, as you can see there, when you think about proper, you usually think about, okay, está decente, right, that you're dressed properly, you're groomed properly, it's decent. So now when we talk about the proper fraction, we always want to think about, okay, the smaller one is at the top and the bigger one is at the bottom. So now when we're looking at these things over here, if you look at the examples, the smaller numbers are always at the top and the bigger numbers are always at the bottom. When we talk about improper fractions, that's the opposite of proper. Proper, improper, bien, not bien, right? So we talk about proper as the small one being at the top and the big one being at the bottom. So improper is the opposite, where you have the big one at the top and the small one at the bottom. And now when we talk about mixed is, I would say, the easiest one to identify, because a mixed has a whole number and has a fraction, and they are together. And that makes it a mixed proper, because I have a whole number and I have a fraction, and those two together, they are mixed, and that makes it a mixed fraction. Now, like fraction and unlike fraction. And then these are important, especially when we're talking about addition and subtraction. When I say adding like fractions, subtracting unlike fractions, adding unlike fractions, you need to know what I'm talking about. When we talk about a like fraction, the like fractions have the same denominator, the same number at the bottom. So I have 5 over 7, 23 over 7, 44 over 7, 50 over 7, 1 over 7, 10 over 7. All of these are like fractions because they have the same number at the bottom. So when we talk about an unlike fraction, that's the opposite, where every number at the bottom is different. And I have 3 over 7, 16 over 15, 100 over 9. All of these things are different denominators, and that makes them unlike fractions. Okay, Yuri, that's okay. So the first thing that we want to look at is how to change a mixed number to an improper number. Right? And usually when I teach this, I tell my students we want to make the number mad. Now, why do we want to make the number mad? Because we want to multiply, we want to add, and then we want to use the denominator. So we want to make the number mad, right? So what happens here now, let me show you guys an example. If I have 3 2/5, I'm going to make this number mad. So I'm going to write my acronym MAD. I'm going to multiply, I'm going to add, and I'm going to use the denominator. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the 3 and I'm going to multiply it with the 5. And then I'm going to add it to the 2. And in my answer, I'm going to write the denominator. Multiply, add, denominator, right? So, what is 3 times 5?
15.
And what is 15 plus 2?
17.
So my answer is going to be 17 over 5. And I converted the mixed number to an improper number. Any questions, guys?
No, miss. No,
Okay.
miss.
Let's do one more. And I'm going to write the acronym again, MAD. I'm going to multiply, I'm going to add, and my answer is going to have the denominator, which is the 3. So what is 2 times 3?
6.
And 6 plus 1?
7.
7. So I'm going to write the 7 at the top, and I have 7 over 3. Yes? Okay. That's one thing that we had to review, right? Next thing, what if I am asked to do the opposite? I'm given an improper number. So I have a big number at the top, I have a small number at the bottom, and I need to change this improper number to a mixed number. And usually, guys, when you are solving a problem and your answer is an improper fraction, you never want to leave your answer as an improper fraction. Always change it to a mix if you cannot reduce it. And I'm telling you this because if you don't do it, you're going to lose points. When the instruction says write in its simplest form, you're not going to be leaving it as an improper. You have to change it to a mixed number. So let's look at the first one. 5 over 4. If I look at this improper fraction, 5 is the bigger number at the top and 4 is the smaller number at the bottom. For me to change this to a mix, I need to do division. I need to do division where I'm going to take 5 and I'm going to divide it by the 4. So, if I have 5, How many times can 4 go into 5?
One.
One.
Do you have remainder?
One.
One.
One
Yes.
remainder.
One.
And I'm going to write the same form at the bottom. And I have changed it to a mixed number. Let's do another one. How many times can 4 go into 13?
Three.
3 times.
Three.
Okay. Do you have remainder?
One.
One.
One remainder over 4. Very good. And I have changed it to a mixed number. Questions, guys? Any questions? Is it clear?
Clear, miss.
Clear, miss.
Good. So, we're looking at these right here. I have half is equal to 2/4, and 2/4 is equal to 3/6, and 3/6 is equal to 4/8. And all of these are what we call equivalent fractions, right? Equivalent fractions. So now, let me write it. Equivalent fractions because all of them represent the same thing. They are not the same thing. They represent the same thing. And we have to be very careful. If they tell you write the meaning for equivalent fractions, don't say, they're the same thing. No, they're not the same thing. They only represent the same thing. So you have to be careful how you're going to say that meaning. So half and 2/4 are not the same thing, but they mean the same thing. Right? It's like when you say red and rojo. They are not the same thing, but they're talking about the same thing. Right? So that is how equivalent fractions work. And we are going to be finding equivalent fractions. How do I find an equivalent fraction? Or how do I know that something is an equivalent fraction? Let me zoom this up a little bit. So, if I give you guys half, and I'm telling you that an equivalent fraction to half has a denominator of 4, how am I going to find the top number? And you have to know your times table to be able to do this, right? I am going to be looking at 2 and the 4 because those are the numbers that are given to me. What did I do to the 2 so that it becomes a 4 in multiplication wise? By what?
Miss, it time.
Repeat.
2 times 2 again.
2 times 2, miss.
By 2, very good. Because 2 times 2 gives me 4. If I talk about the 4 and the 12, by what did I have to times the 4 so that it gives me 12?
4 times 3, miss.
4 times 3, very good. And I have to do these things. Whatever I do to the bottom, I'm going to do to the top. So what is 1 times 2?
2, miss.
2, miss.
So my equivalent fraction here is going to be 2 over 4. What is 1 times 3?
Times 4, miss. 3, miss.
3. So I get 3 over 12. Yes?
Yes, miss.
Let's look at this other one. By what do I times the 10 to give me 2?
2. 10 times.
5.
By what do I times the 10 to give me 2?
By 2, miss.
You can't, miss.
You sure? Yes, you can.
Let's repeat the
5
question.
times 2, miss. 5 times
By
2
what do I times the 10 to give me 2?
Miss, yun ang tino.
Repeat the question one more time, miss.
By what do I times the 10 to give me 2?
One times two. So kita zero yan.
You got
What?
stuck. You
What
got
was your
stuck.
question, miss?
By what do I times the 10 to give me 2?
Por eso es 10 times 2 give you, no, that give you
10
20.
times.
Will you do
It
some
has to
times
be a fraction, miss. Like
It has to be
one
a
eighth.
20
fraction.
times
Very
10 is
good. Very
Yes,
90.
it's
good.
like 1/8, miss. Something like that, miss. Because half, miss, will give you 5.
you divide?
1 times 2 means I give you 2.
Okay. I'm challenging your little heads to think a little while. What number times 10 gives me 2? And it's not a number, it's a fraction or a decimal. But
Half.
but
Yes,
yes.
yes, does that count what I put in the chat box?
No. What you put in the chat box is 1 times 2. But even if you
But it
put the
has a
zero at
one
the
and
front of the
zero.
1, it's 1. Okay. When you have something like this, 10 and then the 2, you want to put the arrow in the opposite direction. Right? I don't want to confuse you guys by putting multiplication, division, fractions, all of these things. So we're going to just stick to the basic. If we were to put the arrow from the 10 going to the 2, like in the other questions, I have to think and think and think on my little head, what fraction is it going to be? Right? And the fraction is 1/5. And if I look at the decimal, what decimal times 10 gives me 2? And it's going to be 0.2. But you don't want to be thinking about those things, and you're going to take all your time trying to figure out what number is going to be there when you can easily just put the arrow the other way. And if I put the arrow the other way, what number times 2 gives me 10? Repeat again.
5, miss.
5.
I miss.
5.
5.
Very good.
Miss.
Very
One over five.
good. 5. So I'm going to do the same thing with the number at the top. Times it by 5. And what does that give you?
Five.
5. Very good. Everybody understanding?
Miss, but I said five.
Yes, but that wasn't the answer to my first question I made.
Oh.
Okay. So everybody understands this, or you guys want to show?
Eso que puse ya es porque era para Miss Matu y se lo mandé ya en el chat box.
That's okay, Yuri. Um, do I need to show you guys another example, or can we move on?
I move on, miss.
I can move on. Yes, everybody.
Yes, miss.
Okay. Okay. Moving on. Moving on. So another type of fraction. Now we have looked at proper, improper, mixed, like, unlike, 5 types, and then equivalent, 6 types. This is gonna be type number 7, which is called a unit fraction. And I know that Mrs. Katsim did not go over this, but in Google Classroom, in the content, it's right there, and it has what is called a unit fraction. A unit fraction is very, very straightforward. You look at it, you're going to be able to tell me what a unit fraction is. A unit fraction is a fraction where the numerator is 1. The number at the top is always going to be 1 for a unit fraction. So we could have 1 over 100, 1 over 25, 1 over 13, 1 over 67. All of these are going to be unit fractions because the number at the top is always going to be a 1. And then now you have non-unit fractions, which are just all the other fractions. All the other fractions that do not have a 1 at the top. 3/4, 3/8, 2/3, 7/9, 5/8. All of these are non-unit fractions, right? One moment, guys. I'm just seeing the messages in the group chat.
Yes, Miss Emily, and who the person who was sending messages about the endless.
Kennedy has access, and I already sent it to Natalie too. Okay. So this is the operation. This is what you guys should have been doing, right? So everything that we just talked about, that is like extra information, something that you guys should have already known from primary school. This is what we actually been doing this week. And we want to start with the basics, adding fractions. But we're gonna start with the easy ones, like the little baby questions. Adding fractions that have the same denominator, or as we call it, we're gonna be adding like fractions. And why like fractions? Because they have the same denominator, and therefore my answer is going to be having the same denominator. So if I am doing that, adding fractions that have a like denominator, we have to understand that my answer is going to automatically have the same denominator. So that's the first thing that I'm going to write. What will be the denominator of this first answer? If I have 2/5 plus 2/5, what is going to be the
5.
number at the bottom?
5.
5. Very good. Because these two are 5, so automatically my answer is going to have 5. What about the other question?
15.
15.
15. 15. Because the number at the bottom is 15, my answer is going to have 15 as well. We're just adding like fractions, and this applies for adding and subtracting. Whatever denominator my questions have, then that is what my answer is going to have as well. Now, when it comes to the adding, I'm just going to do like regular adding. What is 2 plus 2?
4.
4. Very good. What is 11 plus 2?
13.
13. Very good. And then my answer is going to be 4/5, and my answer is going to be 13 over 15. And I've solved the question. Yes? Everybody got that? Everybody understood that?
Yes, it's clear.
Yes, Miss. Clear, clear,
Yes,
clear.
it's clear.
Now, when we are subtracting, the same thing applies. See the numbers at the bottom? 8, 8. So my answer is also going to have an 8. And then when we look at the top is normal subtraction, where I have 5 minus 2 is equal to 3. So now when we do those questions, what is going to be my answer for the question that has 9 over 17 minus 3 over 17? What is going to be my answer?
6 over 17.
6 over 17. Very good. What about the other one?
1 over 19.
19.
1 over 19.
1 over 19. Very good. Is it clear? Everybody understands? Anybody has any questions?
Clear, Miss.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let me change now. Okay. So that was the easy part. We're gonna move on to finding LCM. We want to review how to find LCM before we can go into the bigger problems, right? Finding LCM is there are different ways how we can do this. You can use the ladder method. You can list out your numbers, your multiples. That also works. But what I usually encourage my students to do is to use this method, because this method works even when you have big numbers. Like when you are given 5 over 37 plus 3 over 25. And you don't want to be listing the multiples 25, 50, 75, 100, 125. And then you're going to list the multiples for 37, 37. And then you go on listing all of the numbers, right? You want to avoid those things. What happens when you have this ladder now, and you guys should know how to do it, how to use the ladder. You are dividing and dividing and dividing over and over until you cannot reduce anymore. And it gives you the lowest common multiple of the two numbers that the question has. And then this ladder can be used when you have even more numbers, like when they give you a question that has 2 over 5 plus 3 over 10 plus 10 over 15 plus 5 over 20, and they tell you add these four fractions and give me an answer, then you can also use this table method to divide all of those things, and find your LCM. So we're going to be, yes.
Miss, LCM, when you don't get all of the numbers, you have to plus all times.
Times, you have to times, and I'm gonna show you guys I'm gonna show you guys how to do it, this one, and then I'm gonna give you one, then we're gonna go into the problems with fractions. So finding the LCM of 10 and 50, 10 and 25, sorry, 10, 25. The first thing that I want to be able to do here is I want to look at my number 10 and I want to look at my number 5. What prime number, and the keyword is prime number. What prime number can I use to divide either both of them or one of them?
2, Miss.
I can start with 2. Very good. 2. Now,
5.
how many times is 2 going to 10? I heard the answer. 5.
5.
5.
Now 2 into 25.
5.
Ano pa ang going?
5 Miss.
5 times?
12 minutes. 12 remainder.
Oh, you said
Oh,
20.
no. We
Yes,
don't
you
write
said
remainder though.
25. You can't go, Miss.
It cannot go equally. When we are doing the ladder, we always want to do perfect division. So I divided, no remainder. So,
Miss, 5 times 5 is lagi to 25. So.
10 to
okay,
10 is 5.
one moment. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to bring down the 25, right? Now I
No,
have
para tonight.
now I have 5 and 25. What number can I use to divide now?
5 minutes.
5. Very good. 5 into 5, how many times?
1.
1 time.
Five
5 into
times.
25?
5.
5 times. Very good. Now?
If you use 5 again,
You can use 5 again. Very good. The 1 doesn't matter because I already finished with the 1. 5 into 5?
1.
1. And this is what you want to have here at the bottom. That these two end up being 1. Right? Once those two are 1, then now you know that you are finished with the LCM. And the numbers that you have over here, those numbers, when I multiply them, 2 times 5 times 5 will give me my LCM. What does that give you?
50.
50. Very good. And 50 is going to be my LCM. Yes?
Yes, Miss Clear.
Okay. So, how do we use LCM with fractions? When we are adding and subtracting unlike denominators. So, when the question gives me, for example, 3/5 and 3/2, let me see. Or when the question gives me 5/3 and 6/4, I need to be able to find the LCM. Sometimes the LCM is going to be very easy to find. Like, for example, in this question, if you already know what the LCM is, then you can just go ahead and write it. But we have to be careful, careful that we are using the LCM, right? We don't want to be using another number that is not the LCM. So I'm going to find LCM for 3 and 4. What number can I use?
3.
3. 3 into 3?
1.
1.
1. And 3 into 4?
4.
No.
Can't, right?
You left it like that, Miss.
Now?
You put 4, Miss.
4. Okay.
4.
Then 4 into 4, 1.
And I am finished here, and I have these two numbers. 3 times 4 gives me what?
12.
12.
12. So now I'm going to write my question now. Let me use another pen. Ink. I have 5 over 3 plus 6 over 4. And I'm going to write 12 now because I'm changing it to 12. Can you guys see it on the Jamboard? Yep. Okay.
This Miss.
So now this is where I have to be careful, right? If I have 3 in the first fraction, and now that 3 is going to be at 12, what did I do to the 3 to get 12?
Multiply by 4.
Multiplied by 4, very good. And what I do at the bottom, I do at the top, multiply by 4. What about the 4? What did I do to the 4 to make it 12?
Multiply by 3.
And multiply by 3.
So I do the same at the top, multiply by 3. Now what is 4 times 5?
20.
20 plus 6 times 3
18.
18.
and 20 plus 18,
38.
38 over 12. Is that your answer?
No, Miss.
No, Miss.
Because you have cancels.
What do I cancel?
Miss, que tiene más chico el number. El 38.
We can reduce. Okay, we can reduce. Reduce by what number?
By 12, I think.
When we reduce, I always start with números chiquititos, small little numbers. Start with small little numbers. What is the first number that I can divide both 38 and 12 by?
2.
Let me make another slide so that I can show you guys. Right there. And we have 38 over 12, right? We want to reduce this, so I'm going to cancel by 2. How many times does 2 go into 38?
19, Miss.
How much?
19.
19, very good. And then 2 and 12?
6.
6. Very good, 6. Is that it?
No, Miss, you could
No,
cancel.
Miss.
More. El 19, Miss, y el 6.
By what though? What number can go into 19 and 6?
None.
Yes, none.
So do I leave it like that?
I don't know.
Yes,
Let
I
me
think like that because then you don't have nothing a number that you
maybe you can
can
put it
put
in a
in.
mixed number.
Very good, Emerson. What did I say few minutes ago? You never, nunca. That's like a big math mistake. I'm gonna give you answer wrong if Miss Mai was checking this. Like, ese no terminó su trabajo, me lo dejo en mitad. Because you didn't finish the question. You have to change your improper into a mix. How do I do that?
This
I don't
By
know,
one,
miss.
6 by 19, miss.
You divide what by what?
it divide, yo no sé, yo se me olvidó ahorita.
How do I change it to a mixed number?
19 divided by
Oh,
6.
6 divided by 19, something like that.
Because you are
I
the
heard
miss.
two things. Listen to what I heard. Somebody said divide 19 by 6. And then somebody else said divide 6 by 19.
Let's see how to divide 6 by 19 because I said algo lo puse también.
No, miss, divide 19 by
19
6.
divided by 6.
19 divided by 6. Very good. The biggest number always goes first. 19 is the number that I want to divide, and I want to divide it by how much? By 6. So if I have 19, how many times is 6 going to 19?
3. 3.
3.
3 times. Very good. ¿Cuánto me quedó?
1.
One.
1.
1
Over
or
1.
6.
It's 3.
1/6.
1 is.
3 and 1 over 6.
1 over 6. Very good.
Miss, you could have that more smaller or?
No?
Oh.
That's it. We
Now
can't
let's
reduce
check the
anymore.
improper.
This is the answer.
Now that
Ito.
is the answer. Now this, yes, I would give you even a smiley face and a star because you did the correct thing. So, preguntas, is it clear?
Yes, miss.
This was clear as what? I mean, as water.
Okay. Adding mixed numbers. No. We don't have enough time, and this is why I was asking you guys if it's okay if we have another extra class tomorrow. What I'm gonna be doing is that I am going to be let's see. I will find some little videos, or I will make them. All depends. If I can't find the ones that I want, I will have to make them for you guys, and then we'll send you guys that. Because when we have the extra class tomorrow, for those of you that can join, you don't have to join. Making that very clear. Don't tell your mom, Miss May dice que tengo que entrar. No, don't go and say that. So for those of you that can join, it will be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I will be sending a link for you guys to join. I will send them in the WhatsApp group, and then I will also post it in Google Classroom. Así nadie se
Miss,
pierde.
para aprender, miss, igual sí que van a hacer crucifixion. Sacrificar a alguien, miss, por eso voy a entrar.
So tomorrow we're gonna be working with the package. So if you have time today, I would like you guys to write out the questions in your notebook or wherever it is that you do the package. And then tomorrow, when I show the question, you just find that question and then you can write the working as we're working it together. Yes?
Pero creo que hoy no.
Como? I only heard half of what you said, Yuri.
Creo que hoy no vamos a electives.
Ajá, mi lo elective.
Okay. There should be elective for my elective, for my one, el mío, graphic designing. Those of you that are in my elective, I will not be having today, but I will be sending you guys the link to the I will be sending you guys the link to the Google Classroom, and I will be sending you guys the link to the website where I want you to make an account, so that when we have class next week, todo ya está set y podemos empezar.
Okay, miss.
Right? But I will be
Miss, se me
Miss, pero
aceptaron.
los unos que querían entrar en otro elective, ¿cómo se llama? Los dejaron que hagan join.
Which one?
Miss, yo no sé, Miss, yo voy a entrar Karate Chop.